In January, a senior engineer walked out of Apple and into OpenAI. He kept his Apple laptop. Then he found a bug that let him back into Apple's internal servers and texted a friend who still worked there. LOL, I found out I can access the network storage. So funny. She wrote back, I'm ready.
That text is now evidence in a federal lawsuit. Apple is suing OpenAI, the company it partners with on Siri, for allegedly building its iPhone killer on stolen Apple secrets. 41 pages, 4 trade secret claims, and one number that made everyone stop. More than 400 former Apple employees now work at OpenAI. This is the story of the $6.5 billion shortcut.
Start with the man at the center. Tang Yu Tan spent 24 years at Apple. He helped design the early iPods, ran the iPhone design team, then Apple Watch. In December 2023, Apple announced he was leaving. And here's the detail that reads differently now. For years, Tan reportedly had a rocky relationship with John Ternus, the man about to become Apple's next CEO.
Tan didn't retire. He co-founded a hardware startup called I.O. with Jony Ive, the designer of the iPhone itself, and 2 more senior Apple veterans. In May 2025, OpenAI bought I.O. for about $6.5 billion, its largest acquisition ever. Tan became OpenAI's chief hardware officer. What were they building? A secret device, codenamed Sweet Pea. Reports describe it as screenless, always listening, running a custom 2-nanometer chip. The stated ambition, ship 100 million units faster than any company has ever shipped 100 million of anything. And the reported manufacturer? Foxconn, the same company that builds the iPhone. To build hardware that fast, you need people who've done it before. And there's basically one place on Earth where thousands of them work. By Apple's own count, more than 400 of its employees have moved to OpenAI. Most of them, according to the complaint, from John Ternus's hardware division.
The money helped. OpenAI was reportedly offering packages around $1 million a year. Apple's response, last March, rare retention bonuses for key hardware engineers, $200,000 to $400,000, vesting over 4 years. Those 2 numbers aren't a bidding war. They're not even close.
Now, everything so far is legal. California doesn't enforce non-competes. Hiring 400 people from your rival isn't a crime. It's a Tuesday in Silicon Valley. Apple can't sue anyone for leaving, which is exactly why the complaint isn't about who left. It's about what allegedly left with them.
Allegation 1. The interviews. Apple says Tan directed Apple employees who were interviewing at OpenAI to bring things, actual parts, prototypes, CAD files, for what the complaint calls show and tell sessions. One candidate's reported reaction, didn't even know we could take those from the office. Allegation 2. Tan allegedly used Apple's confidential internal code names during interviews to probe what candidates knew. And OpenAI allegedly approached Apple's own suppliers, asking one to run a proprietary metal finishing process, while letting them believe Apple had signed off on it. Allegation 3 might be the strangest. Apple's managers keep an internal document marked Need to Know, the security playbook for employee departures. The complaint says Tan's team obtained it and shared it with new hires before they'd even given notice. The coaching, quoting the filing, you won't sign anything at the exit interview, and if Apple asks you to sign, let OpenAI know, quote, ASAP.
And then there's Chang Lu, the engineer from the opening. 8 years at Apple. Left in January. Kept the laptop, found the authentication bug, and per the complaint, pulled more than 1,000 pages of confidential files, technical presentations, specs for unreleased products. The colleague who texted, I'm ready, she joined OpenAI 3 months later. Apple noticed. In February, it privately warned OpenAI. It says it never got an answer.
So, on Friday, July 10th, Apple went to federal court. The language is not lawyer beige. OpenAI's hardware business, the complaint says, rests on the shakiest of foundations, rotten to its core by its illegal reliance on misappropriated trade secrets. And everything uncovered so far? The tip of the iceberg.
OpenAI's answer, in full, we have no interest in other companies' trade secrets. Sam Altman was more relaxed on X.
Not afraid of Apple, tremendous respect, S-tier company. Then Elon Musk showed up, because of course he did, telling Altman he'd gone from stealing an open-source AI charity to trying to steal all of Apple's phone technology. Altman fired back about Musk selling public investors on short-term space data centers. So does Apple's case hold up? 3 precedents matter. Waymo sued Uber on similar facts. It settled 5 days into trial for about $250 million in equity. Apple itself once sued a chip architect who left to found Nuvia and quietly dropped the case after 3 years. But the third one is the tell. A startup called IO sued OpenAI in the same courthouse over the same Tan, alleging strikingly similar conduct. In April, the judge granted a preliminary injunction. OpenAI lost the right to even use the name IO.
Which brings us to the clock. OpenAI has confidentially filed for an IPO, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, targeting September, at a valuation reported between $730 and $850 billion. A federal trade secrets case is exactly what goes in the risk section of an IPO filing, and prediction markets have already marked down the odds of a listing this year. And through all of this, ChatGPT is still built into the iPhone. Apple is suing its own AI partner, 2 months after reports that OpenAI was considering suing Apple first.
My read, briefly. Hiring the people was legal, and honestly, Apple's own AI drift is what made them hireable. But if the laptop, the bug, and the show-and-tell session survive discovery, this stops being a talent story. And the I&Y ruling says this court is willing to make OpenAI stop. What would change my mind? OpenAI's formal response, due within weeks.
So, watch 3 dates: OpenAI's answer in court, Apple's motion for an injunction, and OpenAI's IPO decision this fall. Any one of them turns this into a different story. And I'll be following the case. See you at the next filing.